want you to open your Bible just for a few minutes to the book of Joel tonight. Now, I got to thinking about this. I said, actually, we celebrate the birthday of our country every July, don't we? And we thank the Lord for America, the United States of America. And God's really blessed us in this country. He's blessed us with so many continuous blessings over the course of the years. And I think His hand is still upon our country, although sometimes many believe that He's lifted those restraints, that hand of blessing, because we have so much forsaken Him in the day in which we're living. And so, as I preached on July the 4th, or the week of July the 4th, July the 1st, I say, I think we've got to the place, even close to the place, that Judah was in Jeremiah's time and other prophets, where God even told Jeremiah, listen, don't even pray for them anymore, because they've forsaken me, they've left me, and there's another storm coming up. Send us some rain, Lord. We thank you for that. Amen. And they had gotten that place. Remember the prophet said, God told the prophet they don't even blush. They don't even know how to blush anymore. And I said, because we're getting close to that place as well, right? Yeah. But I got to thinking about that as I was thinking about different things that's going on today. And I said, since this is the last Sunday evening in July, as we remember our country and thank God for it, what better time could we do than just, talk about this, how much we need to pray for our country. Now, I'm going to tell y'all something, and I know you do this. It's getting to the place now the best thing to do is not to look at any news, not to look at some of those programs and talk shows and things like that, because the only thing that's going to do is make you angry and mad. And my 88-year-old uncle told me not too long ago, he says, I can't watch it anymore. He says, because I'm watching these things, and you know what? He's a godly man. He says, I think things, I say things I ought not to say. And if I don't say it, I'm still thinking it. And he said, it doesn't make me feel good. So I had to get up with my friends that we pray with, though, in this retirement village. And he says, and I confess this to them sometimes. He says, they don't know what I'm talking about. They're so liberal. Anyway, but that's the truth, isn't it? Amen. But as I said this morning, I've heard more than one here lately say, these are very dangerous times in which we're living in. Dangerous times. Dangerous and scary times. And I told someone the other day that things don't happen soon, there's no telling what we're going to see happen in this country. Right. We are witnessing an attempted coup. Overthrow of the government. That's what we're witnessing. So far, it is a bloodless coup, but nevertheless, it's a coup. And there's so many that hates our president, wants to see him out. And I mean, even encouragement to have him assassinated. Yeah. That's a sad day that we're living in, isn't it? And so we're seeing things happening today that when all this is going on, it's weakening our country. Yeah. And something does happen to him, or either he steps down. I thought about that. If he does, it's going to be an outbreak of something close to the Civil War in this country. It's not good. So I said, you know what we need to do? We need to remind our people to continue to pray for our country. Now, some would say, well, when is the point of no return? I don't know what it is. That's God's business, right? All I know is we can do just like Jeremiah. We can continue to pray and weep over our country and plead to God, get on our faces and pray and ask God to do something. Even though it looks like it might be hopeless at times, because of the direction we are taking and because of certain things that's happening in our country and continue to happen. It might be, but we don't know that, right? I never will forget when my dad was sick in the hospital, and he'd already slipped into a coma. And the group of physicians that had been assigned to him, because our physician had retired, we're going back into the Army, Dr. Tolson, so we was turned over to some more doctors. But they would come by there and check on him every morning. And one of the doctors said one morning, said this, I overheard him say this, I don't understand why he's still living. I don't understand why he hasn't died yet. And it cut me to the heart. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it has my dad laying there dying. I know he's dying, but it doesn't help to hear compassionate, a physician come in and say something stupid like that. But when he said that, I don't know if y'all remember a nurse by the name of Mrs. Duncan. Y'all remember her? Her husband was Carl Duncan up here at Singer So-and-so. She was a nurse at Moriah Permanent. And she heard it, and she saw my reaction. And she stopped right back, and she put her hand on my shoulder. She says, son, don't you worry about it. I believe as long as there's life in your body, there's hope. I never forget that. As long as there's life in the body, there's hope. And sometimes I feel that way about our country, don't you?
Yeah.
Now, you know, in Joel, in the book of Joel, one of the minor prophets, and the reason they call them minor prophets, not because of a minor message by no means, but it's a smaller book. The minor prophets, the major prophets, the difference is, of course, the size of the contents of the book. But the background of this, as you know, we talked about not too long ago, there was a famine. That was a drought that was probably causing a famine. And not only was there a drought, but there was a locust invasion as well. And Joel believes that because this is happening to him, the country that is, he says this is because of our sin. You know, God is doing this. He is judging us because of our sin. And in this, you know, he's pleading for the people to pray, to turn to God, to call for the Solomon, do everything you can, but pray passionately for the Lord. And so I wrote this outline down many, many years ago, and when I preached through this book. I don't know whether this is my outline or whether I got it from Bob or somebody else. I just don't know. But it's good. And the title of the message is A Prescription for Survival. And I think that's a good title for us to put on any series when we're going to preach about the United States of America. Amen? Amen. Because it's a matter of survival now, the way I see it. I just don't say, I used to preach a message, no revival, then there's no survival. And so I think we've gotten that far now. So, but if you look at this, I just want to bring these points out to you tonight and just list 4 necessary characteristics of God's people to bring what God's people must do for survival of a nation. So I want you to think about this. Number 1, we need people with passion. I mean, people with passion that can see that, man, we've got a great need here. I mean, if something doesn't happen soon, you know, we're going to be history. We're going to be just like the rest of the nations, the rest of the world that's been gone, that's empires, that's collapsed, and they're no more in the ash heaps of history if something don't happen now. So what we need, first of all, we need people with a passion, just like the prophet Joel did. Notice what it says in verse 2 of chapter 1. He says, "Hear this, ye old men, ye aged men. Give ear to all this, all ye inhabitants of the land." He says, "Hath this been in your days, or even in the days of your fathers? Have you ever seen anything like this before? Anything ever happened like this before?" So you see the passion there as he's talking. He says in verse 5, notice, "Awake, ye drunkards." He's been calling for the drunkards to wake up. "Awake, ye drunkards, and weep, and howl, all ye drinkers of wine, because of the new wine, for it's cut off from your mouth, because there's no crop of grapes to get the wine from." He says, and then look if you would at verse 8. Verse 8, he says, "Lament like a virgin girded with sackcloth for the husband of her youth." In other words, like newlyweds. That's like a woman that's lost her husband, even maybe before the honeymoon period. I mean, her heart is broken. And so she's got a broken heart for her husband or her fiancé, and they really haven't even got their life started together yet. We need to have a broken heart like that, passion like that. I remember I saw a movie a few years ago now. It's one of these movies that's on Hallmark. I know y'all probably seen many of them too. Who's the lady writer that writes these stories? They get these Janet O. Remember when this young lady and her husband, they was moving west, they had just gotten married, and they were so happy, and she had pulled up to this place that was camping. Anyway, her husband looked for some wood or something to hunt for supper, and he had an accident on his horse, and he got killed. And y'all remember that movie? And you remember how broken-hearted she was, and it was awful. It made me just about cry to see that, you know? Something like that would happen. Her whole future was it seemed like it was over right then. So I thought about that when I looked at that verse 8 there. The prophet says you need to lament, or you need to mourn like a virgin girded with sackcloth for the husband of her youth. So you see the passion there. And I don't think we see enough passion in our folks to pray for something to happen in our country, that God will spare our country. Look at verse 11. "Be ye ashamed, O ye husbandmen, and howl, O ye vine dressers, for the wheat and for the barley, because the harvest of the field is perished." He's just brokenhearted over this. And then finally, verse 19, he says, "O Lord, to thee will I cry, for the fire hath devoured the pastures of the wilderness, and the flame hath burned all the trees of the field. In other words, there's nothing left. This locust invasion just wiped them out. And you know, these were agricultural people. These was farming people. And all they had that was dependent upon their crops, upon their sheep and different things like that. So he's saying because of this drought and also because of this locust invasion, it's left nothing. So he's brokenhearted and he's passionate. And he's passionate for his land as well. And he's put this before the people and says, we need all of our people to see the awful things that's happening in our land and see that we're being destroyed and we're even being judged by Almighty God for our sin. So you know what we need to do? We need to pour out our hearts to the Lord. And we need to pray and pray and pray and be passionate. Have some passion about that. And that's what we need in America, don't we? We really do. Because of the things that's happening now, I'm telling y'all folks, and I think you can see, anybody that's got any sense at all can see this, right? I mean, it's a no-brainer. Things cannot continue as they are right now. I think, again, we are in dangerous times. And it's not only Baptist preachers saying this. I mean, news commentators are saying it. These are dangerous times, scary times. And I'm telling you something, the only thing that can help us right now is the intervention of God Almighty Himself. Now, I believe that. So I'm saying that God's people need some passion and start pouring out their hearts to God for survival. Secondly, we need some people, God's people now. And remember, do you remember when God told Solomon in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14, if my people who are called by my name will pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and then will I, heal their land. So this is a message to God's people here. So what we need here, the second thing is, if we want a prescription for survival, we not only need God's people to have some passion about this, but we need God's people who will truly be penitent themselves over their sins. Amen? We need to look at our own lives. We need to ask the Spirit of God to examine us and see if there be a wicked way in us and reveal it to us and be sorry for our sin, and with God's help and the help of the Holy Spirit, turn away from our sin so that we can pray and in order that God will hear our prayers. Amen. The Bible says God won't even hear the prayer if there's cherished sin in our life, right? Yeah. Isaiah chapter 59, verses 1 and 2, you read that sometime. Psalm 66, 18, read what it says. I mean, if there's unconfessed sin in our life, it says clearly God doesn't hear our prayers. In the sense that He's going to answer them. So what do we need to do? We need to get our own hearts right and be passionate about it as well, but be truly penitent, sorry over our sins. Look, if you would, at chapter 2, verses 12 and 13. Chapters 2, 12 and 13. He says this, therefore, also now saith the Lord, Yahweh God, Jehovah God, turn ye even to me with all of your heart, with fasting, with weeping, and with mourning. Now, you can't do that unless you're truly sorry for your sin, right? If it doesn't bother you, if your sin does not bother you, listen, and it should be if you get the Spirit of God in your heart, because you know that when you sin, listen, continue, habitually, or whatever, it grieves the heart of God, right? Yeah. And if it grieves the heart of God, it should grieve you. So he's saying here, first of all, you turn to me with all of your heart, with fasting, with weeping, and with mourning. And then he says something interesting in verse 13. Rend your heart, and not your garments, and turn unto the Lord your God, for He is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and of great kindness, and repenteth Him of the evil. And what he's saying here, it had become a ritual in that day. Something just to be seen, if you will. Something that was so formal, there was no meaning behind it. Where they would just tear their clothes, And in a sense, when they were doing that, of course, as you know, when they would do that and meant it, it was a sign of sorrow. It was a sign of having grief and being burdened and brokenhearted. And so what the prophet here is saying, and God is speaking through the prophet, he's saying you really need to be truly sorry over your sin. You need to really be genuine about it, sincere about this, Don't just let it be for show. Don't let it just be for something that you're doing as a part of a religious ceremony. No, your heart needs to be broken for your sin.
Yeah.
And it's not the only way that that can happen is you've got to ask God, again, go to the Lord and ask the Spirit of God, again, as the psalmist did in Psalm 139, and, search me, try me, see if there be any wicked way in me, O God, and then lead me into the way everlasting. So if we want to see God bless, and we want to see our land survive, God's people's got to have some passion. They got to be truly penitent over their sin, and not just for show. You go back sometime and you read in the book of Amos, I think it's Amos chapter 5 verses 21 and 24, and then you read Isaiah chapter 1 verses 11 through 17, and then when you get time, read Jeremiah chapter 7 verses 1 through 11. And you know what you'll find out in that? God actually says to his people, listen, I am, and this is a rough paraphrase, okay? As Dr. Galeotti used to say. Rough paraphrase, but it'll work. He would say that when he had some of those dummies in his Hebrew student trying to, interpret and trying to translate the Hebrew. He would always look at it, that deep voice, and he says, well, it's rough, but it'll work. But so this is a rough paraphrase. But what God was actually saying to his people, you have become so formal, you've become so ritualistic, tradition-wise. You don't even mean what you're saying. I mean, your services, your songs, everything you're doing, it's making me sick. I don't even want to hear it anymore. Why? Because it was just doing it for a show. They really didn't mean it. They didn't truly have hearts broken over their sin. They didn't really want to truly worship Yahweh God and follow him. No, again, it was just, they were the people of God and they just expected to do it. So it wasn't sincere. It wasn't genuine. So what the prophets here is saying in each one of these books, those passages I shared with you, is that you really need to be sincere and genuine about this. Don't just do it for show. Don't just be doing it as a part of religious ceremonies. Put meaning in it. Meaning. And the only thing that God's going to hear is from someone who is truly penitent over their sins. So God's people need to be passionate for their country, for their nation, as the prophet here says, but they need to be truly penitent as well. But also the third thing you need is this. There need to be some of God's people who will truly consider the possibilities of what God may do. Look if you would at the same passage of Scripture, chapter 2, verses 12 through 14 again. Remember he says, you turn even to the Lord for all your heart, with fasting, with weeping, with mourning. You need to have broken hearts, rend your heart, tear your heart, cut your heart, not your garments, not just your garments. Turn to the Lord your God, for he is gracious and merciful and slow to anger, and he is a God of great kindness, and repenteth him of the evil. It simply means this. He's not just doing this arbitrarily. God's got a plan. God's got a purpose behind all this. He's just not doing it because he's some killjoy up in heaven want to do it. You be sincere. You be truly penitent. You really have a broken heart over your sin, over the way your nation is going. He says, who knows? Look at verse 14. Who knoweth if he will return and repent or relent, we might would say, and leave a blessing behind him, and even a meat offering and a drink offering unto the Lord, your God. So what he's saying here is, if you pray, if you have some passion, if your heart is broken, and if you're sincere and genuine, and I mean, if you're being straight with the Lord about all of this, who knows what God might do. And I'm telling you something. I hear this all the time, and you probably have as well. The way this last election went, I believe it because God's people all over this land started praying and praying and praying and pleading with the Lord.
Amen.
And for the two choices that we had, you can say what you want to, but I believe God answered prayer.
Amen.
Because of certain things that's happened since that election, and I know what would have happened if that Hillary Clinton had to get been elected.
Yeah.
I think we'd be that close to losing the freedom to preach the gospel as we're preaching right now.
Yes.
Now, that's what I believe.
Yes.
And we've lost some other leverages as well. And we've continued on that course of the last 8 years, it was said, you know, that was so anti-biblical, anti-Christian, anti-Christ. And so I'm just telling you, I believe God answers some prayer.
Amen.
I believe He answers some prayer too, to give us a little reprieve, a little window, a little door, so we can see some more souls saved before He takes the church out of here.
Yes.
And that's what I believe. So we need people who will consider the possibilities. And lastly, if we are going to survive, then God's people's not going to have the passion, be truly penitent, consider the possibilities, but they just got to trust and stand on the promises of God. Amen? Chapter 2, verses 18 through 21. Look at what it says. Then, notice what it says. Let me go back to verse 16. Look at verse 15. Blow the trumpet in Zion, sanctify a fast. Set aside a day for fasting. Call for a solemn assembly. And then he says, gather the people. Bring everyone in here. Sanctify the congregation. Assemble the elders. Gather the children, those who are nursing His will. Let the bridegroom go forth out of his chamber. I mean, stop everything. It's this important. And the bride out of her closet. And then the prophet says, let the priests, the ministers of the Lord, weep between the porch and the altar. Let them say, spare thy people, O Lord. Give not thine heritage to reproach, that the heathen should rule over them. Wherefore should they say among the people, where is their God? As I'm looking at this and reading this, I don't know why, but it's just like the Spirit of God is saying, that's where we are right now. What do y'all think?
Yes.
I mean, really, true. Can't you see that? Notice what it says again, verse 17. And think about this as I read this, as we read it together. Let the priests, the ministers of Yahweh, the Lord, weep between the porch and the altar. That's the area in the tabernacle of God. And let them say, spare your people, O Lord. Give not thine heritage to reproach, that the heathen should rule over them. Wherefore should they say among the people, where's your God, man? We might be that close, folks. We never know.
Yeah.
Things don't look too good to me. But the last point was we need to stand and trust the promises of God. If we'll do all that, if we'll be passionate, enough of God's people have a passion within them like the prophet here said that we need to have. If we'll be truly penitent, if we'll consider the possibilities, and then we'll just stand on the promises. Look at verse 18. Then will the Lord be jealous for His land and pity His people. Isn't that good? He even says, He gives these further promises. He says in verse 25, I will restore to you the years that the locust hath eaten, the cankerworm, the caterpillar, the palmerworm, my great army, which I sent among you, God says. He's a sovereign God, folks. He's doing all of this. You know, the Bible says, I think it's in the book of Amos, that even God has His way in the whirlwind. People don't like to hear that. Yeah. Don't y'all remember when different ones was preaching back when we had one of those terrible hurricanes years ago, and different ministers were saying that God is trying to speak to us. I think it was Katrina. Remember that? And even some conservative commentators got angry with the preacher. It was a congressman. That's what it was. It was a Christian congressman, I believe it was, that was either in Louisiana or Mississippi. Had made a bold, courageous statement that God is probably judging us because of this great, awful thing that was happening in New Orleans at that time, the gambling and the Mardi Gras and all of that was going on. And you know, some gambling casinos had been wiped out. And he had all the nerve to say something like that. And I heard different ones say, God doesn't do things like that. He doesn't do that thing. And then a couple of preachers even apologized for suggesting that. You think I would ever apologize for saying what the Word of God says?
No.
Because it does tell me that God does that, does it not?
Amen.
It surely does.
Yes.
And so God has His way in the whirlwind. I mean, He's a sovereign God. And we know that Satan does some of these things too, but he can only do what God allows him to do.
That's right.
You know, to accomplish His sovereign will. So we know that God's in control of everything. And all depends upon what He desires and wills to do. But we as His people, we can do things like this and pray and plead with Him for healing in our country and in our land. Because I'm telling you, I know you don't keep hearing this, but with dangerous times, folks.
Yes.
I see it, I don't know whether y'all see it or not, but I see it every night on some of these programs. It's some of the things that the so-called progressives are saying. Those are the extreme left now, what they are saying, and it's just awful. I never thought I'd see a day like this. I don't agree with everything the president does, you know? I just don't. But he's our president.
Yes.
And we need to respect him for being our president.
Right.
And not listen to the rhetoric and this lame brain talk that's going to encourage somebody to try to kill him and kill others that support him. I know someone, I heard the other night, someone got beat up because they had a Trump sign in the yard or something. It's sad days we're living in.
Yes.
God save America. That's all I can say. Let's keep praying for our land. Amen. Let's stand up.